Hello and welcome to another Emperor's Children video. I am Sam from Black Crow. I'm here to talk to you about all things Emperor's Children and uh, army lists. So I've created slash stolen. I will admit here that there are lots of people that are cooking up lists, and I like some of their ideas, but this is my run through of what I think some of the early Emperor's Children lists will look like. I've written we've got 6 lists here for you. There are 6 detachments in the army, as you know. Sanesh's special number is 6, so we've got to stick with the 6. Now, um, I've written different lists for different detachments, and I thought I would talk through my thought process with about them and show you guys what the lists are. So if you aren't familiar with the codex because you've not gotten your box yet, or you've not seen all the talk about it online, or watched some of these other great content creators out there, I will do like brief summaries of the detachments. I'm not going to go into excruciating detail because there are plenty of videos online about that, and you can go and find these um, detachments yourself. So first things first, I'm starting with Mercurial host. So um, this, I think, is the most like sort of standard. It feels the most indexy, even though obviously Emperor's Children didn't have an index by themselves. This feels the most indexy detachment. Um, so the detachment rule is reroll advances. Now, when your whole army advances and charges and shoots and stuff with conditions, those rerolls are going to be really helpful just to be consistent, right? Like you just got consistent movement. You can just do what you want, um, which is great. I think the detractor for this detachment is it feels like Emperor's Children at the moment are lacking firepower. So I think having uh, consistency of getting to the right places is great for scoring, but it's not necessarily um, you're going to struggle, I think, on the firepower end of things. But I do love this detachment. I think this is one of the ones that I will be playtesting myself, and this is one of the first lists that I'm sort of looking at and messing around with. So um, in the characters, I mean, all these lists, there's only so many detachments, so the lists are going to look kind of similar in some ways and different in others. Um, so just quickly on the sort of enhancements. So the Loathsome Dexterity on the Demon Prince, so that's the Walking Demon Prince. That just sort of lets him go through enemy models, stops you getting blocked where you don't want to be blocked, gets you into the better positions, which is a nice sort of tool there. It's not too expensive points wise. I think that's 10 points on top of the Demon Prince body. And I love the Demon Prince, Walking Demon Prince, like the Lone Op, fantastic. The extra AP across everything, like you just hit so much harder with that extra AP when you're going into combat with all of your little guys, your standard Space Marines. We've got the Demon Prince with wings. He is that rapid ingress threat, that mortals on the charge phase that you always want to like get mortals outside of, do damage in other phases is always really good, especially into a lot of armies that have like um reactionary things that they can do, or if you're going into a fight first unit, maybe like kill a bunch of them before they get to attack because of doing 5 to 6 mortals. He's fast. He hits reasonably okay, especially if he stood near the other prince. The extra AP. There's some decent. He's a solid profile, very tanky with that -1 damage. So it's good to have him in there. Like I say, with the advance rerolls, you've got that potential of going. He moves 14 reroll in advance, you're looking at like a probably on average 18 to 20 movement. That's fantastic. And when you really need to go that 20, this detachment has that plus that auto advance 6, which is huge. Like though it's kind of weird that it's with the rerolls, so it's like most of the time you're not going to need it, but when you do need it, it's just there for you, sorted. Um, Otherwise, this detachment has like lots of it has defense from shooting, defense from um, melee. So it's a nice like I really like this detachment for just being that all-rounder, right? If you just want to pick up Emperor's Children and not worry about like not try and specialize in any which way and just get a bit of everything, I feel like this attachment's a really good one for that. You've got a reactive move in there, which obviously the Spawn already have. So let's look at the rest of the list that I've written in here. So we've got two two Demon Princes, one of each, two Lord Exultants. There's classic beat sticks with those Infractor units. There's two Infractor units to go with them, and then we've got a Lord K. Because funnest is going to be hard for me to pronounce throughout this entire long video. Um, so steeped in suffering is means that if your opponent is below starting strength, +1 to wound, +1 to hit, sorry, and then below half strength, +1 to wound for your whole squad. So that Lord K with 6, as you'll see down here, there is 6 Noise Marines, 2 sets of 6 Noise Marines for them to go with, and he just hits like it. You just throw a grenade at that unit, or you just tickle it as long as you're not advancing with Lord K's unit. Although I suppose if you do advance with that Noise Marine brick, you want to do the grenade thing. So you'll throw a grenade from one of your other units to then mean that you haven't technically like shot them yet, which means you can still shoot them with the Thrill Seekers rule condition. So you've got to think about target priority there. You want to tickle them a bit, but then you get to hit them with the +1 to hit, because like +1 to hit and sustained hits for that Noise Marine unit, they're gonna hit hard. Like I find in my practices so far, Noise Marines haven't been doing quite as much as I feel like they should do, and like having a Lord with them and having some form of buff helps that a lot. Tactical perfection, that redeploy. We've got 3 Tormentor units in here. I think that that infiltrate like mini game, having the ability to just then redeploy. Yes, it's before you know who goes first, but it means you can just set them up super aggressively and then go, actually, I'm going to be over here, or oh, I'm going to set you up so you can't come here, but then I'm not going to be there in the end. So it's a good little thing. It doesn't help for blocking scout moves, but it does help for blocking opponent infiltrating units. So that should be a nice little potential thing there. And once again, it's not a huge amount of points. I just like it as a tech piece for our infiltrating tormentors. Lets you put them where you want in the deployment and then still end up having them there at the end. I mean, usually I think I'll probably use it where I'll put 3 out infiltrating, and then after I've seen how they deploy, I'll probably pull 1 back to go on my home field to stick it turn 1. So yeah, then we got 2 units of Flawless Blades. The Flawless Blades, I think these are so swingy, so weird as units. So I think that it's good to have the odd unit or 2 of them in the army, because it allows you to deal with stuff that you're struggling to deal with otherwise. They don't deal with everything in that role, right? So if if you happen to be, because you want them to deal with big things, right? They're very good at hitting big things, but if that big thing happens to have an invulnerable save, you're suddenly struggling. But like they run into a land raider and just take like 12 wounds off, right? Like that's you know consistently like that. Like they should get that. If you have like the AP buffs on them, of the I suppose, sorry, in this detachment you can only go up to AP 4 with the flawless blades if they're near the demon prince, but still, like going into tough vehicles you can just do a consistent level of damage, but it's never like crazy amounts. But it is consistent. So you can also give them in this detachment sustained hits in the fight phase. So that's a nice little buff for them. I'm trying to think what all the other detachments are. You've got a uppy downy strat, it looks like, I think. So this, what I mean by this is literally like the most all-round. -1 to wound from shooting, -1 to hit in combat, sustained hits in combat, uppy downy, reactive move, and auto advance 6. Like it just is a utility piece. I feel like if the army did more damage, this detachment would be the place to go. Like if the army was just like hammering people with damage, the utility pieces that this detachment gives you is insane. So good. So yeah, that's my sort of two-piece on this attachment. We finish it off with 2 units of noise marines, some spawn, and some rhinos. Just a point out here, as it's come up at the bottom there. This um, all of my lists. So if you're wanting to write Emperor's Children list, obviously it's not available on the GW app right yet, and there's other utilities that other apps that people use. That I'm using this Army Reactor app that was sent in the Team England Discord. It is fantastic, easy, simple to use, just quickly. I've obviously also ignored all the war gear stuff. Some of that is automatically put in for you, don't worry. But I've just deleted it to make this like more compact. But assuming the war gear is like maxed out on all of these lists, obviously I'm not saying don't take blast masters and your noise marines because I've not written it on the list. Like assume everything is the right war gear. But yeah, you can do all of that on the app. This is just me like simplifying things so to make it easier viewing for you guys. But if you want to write and test out lists yourself, Armor Reactor, it's got all the points, it's got all the units on there. So it's a great little tool to have, very quick and easy to use. I think that is the link that you can see there, but I'll also put the link in the description for you guys to hit on. And yeah, check it out. Not a sponsor, not anything like that. Just how I wrote these lists. All right, so that's Mercurial host, like that all-rounder thing, and then the next one we go into is basically the opposite, like the weirdest, most specialist one. I think maybe one later might be a bit weirder. So we are going on to the Carnival of Excess. So this is the demon detachment. So you get 4 or 5 data sheets of demons in the codex. These are same in name as the demon index, but these are not the same as the demon index. They are similar. They're not the same. They have their own points cost. They can't be taken by the demon armies. So even though this is called Carnival of Excess, and the keyword on these demon units is Legions of Excess, they cannot be used in the Legions of Excess detachment. They just have they still use their index ones. They don't. It doesn't look like they're overriding them, at least as far as we know now. Then maybe GW brings out an FAQ that says that these ones replace those ones. So far, it doesn't look like that, just because keywords wouldn't make sense then, because they don't have the Legions, Demonica faction keywords. So they take up to 1,000 points of demons. Now, this was my first pass at this, and I haven't had the chance to play test this detachment yet. But one of my thoughts about this is, so you get uh, sustained hits when you're near demons. So you kind of want to put uh, like, and you get sustained fives, or crits on fives if you have uh, demons nearby and you already have sustained hits. So it also works both ways as well. So if a Emperor's Children model is near a demon model, the demon gets sustained hits and vice versa. So this is an interesting one. Like if Fulgrim was cheaper, I would really like him in this detachment because one, he's a cool little beat stick, and doesn't really buff the army that much anyway. Like doesn't really help the army that way. It's a very selfish model. So like him having stuff with demons kind of works. Like you're not getting as many like overlapping buffs necessarily as you want. Although going back to that walking demon prince, his rule applies to Slanesh models, not Emperor's Children models. So his buff will apply to across both parts of this army. We've got demonettes that now have fight first. Like they're not bad. Like they're not breaking the bank. They're not the most OP things. They're still the squishy cells that they are. But fight first is an interesting thing to have sort of behind walls and things like that, and buffing your other units. We've got 2 Lord Exaltants with one with a possessed blade. That gives him an extra damage on one of his weapons, and if he chooses to make it hazardous, which you will always pretty much do, you get except I suppose if you're going through on AP, you get dev wounds. So he's hitting insanely hard, and doing dev wounds. So with damage free, which is really really cool. So like, and if he's near demons, he'll get sustained hits. He gives his unit lethal hits, so we're getting sustained and lethal. And it's a shame you can't get sustained in another way, so that you could get sustained and lethal on fives. That would be nuts. But yeah, so that's one of the enhancements. The other one is Warp Walker. That Demon Prince with Wings now just auto advances 6 every turn, and can like fall back and pass Desperate Breakouts automatically or something. The main part is the auto advance 6. So you've got a 20-inch moving flying Demon Prince that does mortals on the charge, and then you have a way with this detachment of charging twice in a turn. So you have your and so that's why I've put in, we scroll down, we've got Noise Marines. So one of those units is going to be led with by Lord K, which means they're going to be sustaining on 5s. The other one, when they're nearby demons, will be sustaining on 6s because they're near demons. So I've put in Fiends. So Fiends, these aren't the Fiends that are in the Legions of Excess detachment. One, they lost the -1 to wound. -1 to hit, sorry, which is like, oh, that kind of sucks. But they do still have the, if you want to fall back from them, you have to make desperate breakout tests. Just a nice little added of like, oh, let me just grab, tag into stuff. And this detachment does have a, I think it has a, uh, yeah, you can pile in and for 2 CP, which is expensive, you can pile in and consolidate 6 inches. But it really does let you sort of like throw a bunch of stuff into one unit and then just like hop into the next unit. Which, speaking of throwing a bunch of stuff into one unit, you have a combo which I mentioned in my last video, which is you throw the Demon Prince in, he does mortals. You then throw fiends in, the fiends kill the rest of the unit. Demon Prince charges again, does mortals again, and then hits them. So it's this is what this like list is sort of built around. It's like doing a bit of damage, scoring some stuff, having demons sort of spread out a bit, fast moving fiends that are going to hit hard with sustained hits. Like, they're not going up and wrecking a tank or anything they want to, like they do in excess, but they are cheaper. And like, this is my sort of like first pass at a Carnival of Excess list. I think it's a interesting one. It feels like there's not as much there as I would want to be there, but you've still got lots of fast breaching combat units that are just going to hit hard, and with things being near each other, you've just got so much sustained hits, and with a decent strat suit as well with it, and like that 20-inch moving Demon Prince with Wings is a nice thing to put in there, like just hammer into the enemy. So that is my Carnival of Excess list. Obviously, with this, there is the idea as well, is you could just put keepers in. Sadly, keepers lost their Feel No Pain though, so I'm more inclined to go with the faster, smaller units. And the reason why I've gone for fiends over seekers. Seekers are fast enough to get around to places, but they die very quickly and easily. And they don't hit as hard as I would like them to try and trigger that extra charge where you can go, oh, the opponent's screening me. Not anymore, because I've just like one place I pile in 6 inches and attack, in another place I charge again. Like, I know it costs a bunch of CP, what I just said, but it's only 3 CP. This army generates CP with units like the Lord Exultant, and if you're doing this on turn 2, you could easily have that stored up. So there's a lot of potential sort of, I run into you, but instead of stopping on screens like most melee armies do, I just run straight through into the next juicy step. And then you have things that tie up stuff that go, oh, if you want to fall back, you're making desperate breakouts. And so there's potential threat damage there. And it sort of just stops people being able to just like try and play like a cheeky trading game with you. You just sort of try and hammer straight through them. That's kind of the idea with this anyway. So that is the second list. If we move on to, I mean, a lot of my lists will have like multiple infractors with exaltants and multiple tormentors because I love that infiltrate sticky, and I think they're really useful little things. And I cannot wait just to melt a gun some random character out of a unit, like for example, like a fight first character that somehow I've gotten out into the open and just go like, oh, here's a melta gun to the face. But yeah, we'll see if that happens. So yeah, one rhino with this list. The infractors will just hop in that and scout about, and then probably when they jump out of it, noise marines might jump in. But yeah, right. So the next one is Coterie. So Coterie of the Conceited is, I think, probably going to be the most popular detachment from the get-go. Now, this army list is one of the ones I hinted at before that I stole. So shout out to the team in the Discord that have been a few people talking about this list, and this detachment in particular. I think this one attracts most people because it's got the most potential for damage, because you start off with basically no detachment rule, and then you slowly like gain things as you pledge. I definitely think it's worth checking out and reading yourself. The detachment rule, but effectively you're going to start the game with no buffs, and then very quickly you're going to have real ones to hit and hopefully real ones to wound, and that's all you really need. Like once you've got those two, you live in life. So that's going to help a lot with damage output. Um, I think it is. It's got some nice strats in there as well. I mean, I think this is the one with Armor of Contempt, which obviously only works for one activation now, not one phase. And it's got a few other good stratagems. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, you can mess around with the pledge stuff, so you can say a lower number and then pump it up if your opponent gives you more stuff to kill. Because my main issue with this detachment is the fact that if you go second, gives your opponent a lot of agency of over. You do your pledge and then they go, oh, you've said 4 units. Well, I could do, yeah, I want to do this with 4 units, but I could do it with 3, or I could focus more over this side. So it's like if I leave this guy alive, that will get you another kill, and if I get rid of him, or I've got a single guy alive, I'm just going to yeet him away into a transport instead of doing that action over there, or something like that, right? Like there's a lot of um reactionary things that the opponent can do based on the number you say for your pledge, which just kind of is a bit feels bad. Like I don't understand why the pledge isn't command phase to like just like either command phase to command phase or command phase for the turn, right? Like just be like, how many am I going to kill this turn, and go from there. Because like that would also mean that you would get the buffs immediately for the next player your opponent's turn as well. Um, but yeah, so there's some good strats in here. Uh, you can it's got the sister strat. That's another thing which I think is why a lot of people are excited about it. It's got a lot of like shenanigans with things like you can just throw a unit in and just go, come, you got to hit me now. Which is like super annoying for like units like Angron, which from me as World Eaters, like when I was having to deal with that Sisters faction that had the ability to do that and then get back up with the character. So you like, oh, I've just killed a thing and then I've got to kill it again, and they're just spending that 1 CP to make you hit that one crappy thing over and over while you're just tied there. So yeah, Coterie is really interesting because if you do play against, so it also depends on what you're up against, right? So if you're against a army with loads of MSU, loads of characters leading units, because that's the other thing is like each character and unit like count as 2. So if you've got loads of like characters leading units, they're gonna generate a bunch. They've got lots of easy to kill units. I mean, if you think about Biovores firing a spore mine, although, like I say, if they're going first, they might see that you're going to struggle to get that pledge and then not throw the spore mine. But there's so much potential there for that. Like certain factions, you're just going to be able to score lots, and then other times you're just going to really struggle. So if you went into like Solar Spearhead, for example, that's a really tough one to call because it's very easy just to leave stuff just slightly not quite dead because it's so tanky. 4 up invuns are 4 up invuns. So it's one of these things where I feel like this army, this detachment spirals the most, which means it's like the most exciting and the most disappointing at the same time. Um, so yeah, this is the list that people seem to be liking at the moment. It's doing double demon prince with wings. I mean, they are very good early on. They're good as rapid ingress threats. They can just jump in, jump out, like 14-inch move with average of 5 mortals on the charge, and then smacking reasonably hard is I mean, for demon prince hard, right? Like they're not killing a big vehicle, but they're not like they're good into sort of that uh, uh, elite infantry. So they're good like pieces just to run out and kill things. And yeah, you've got this classic triple Lord E's with infractors, some tormentors. The by the way, Lucius is just so good. Like he is in most of these lists. Like he's not in this one, I don't think, which I think is actually something I'm regretting already. But he's just really really solid. And in this one, you need a solid warlord. So because if your warlord dies, you cannot generate any more detachment abilities. So it's just over. And if you fail to do it, your warlord takes damage, and Lucius has a Fiona Pain, so potentially doesn't take as much damage and lasts longer. He also needs to be on the board and not be killed by your opponent, so that lone op ability is very very useful as well. Lone op fight first, right? Like he's not easy to take down. So yeah, 3 lords with the infractors. They're going in, smacking stuff. That the lordies reroll ones to hit, fantastic. But with infractors, reroll ones to wound doesn't matter. So once you've gotten like through the first battle round, these lords hit hard because that reroll ones to hit, and then they've also got reroll ones to wound, because of infractors. So they're really good tormentors, just solid units to stand on objectives, sticky them, go do actions. We've got the noise marines. Once again, real ones to hit. Suddenly, these noise marines are hitting a lot better. Same with flawless blades. One of their issues is that inconsistency of like, oh yeah, I'm 2s to hit, 3s to wound, but I've only got 9 attacks, so I better hit. Yeah, so you need to do reroll ones helps them a lot, right? Reroll ones to hit, suddenly they're 4 rerolls to hit. They should be hitting almost all of their attacks. Then reroll ones to wound, well, they're wounding on 3s. So as long as they're not rolling 2s, which obviously you'll roll a load of 2s, that's really really good for them. But flawless blades are still, so that's why I think there's only 1 unit in here. Noise marines and rhinos, like it. This is 3 rhinos. You've got a noise marine bus, and then you've got some infractor buses and for scouting, and then like a mixture. It depends on what you want to do, whether you want to have those rhinos scout and the noise marines sat out, or hop in at the start and then have the rhinos safe and not scouting. The enhancement here is a flip to a 6 for the unit. So it's, even though his guns aren't amazing because they're just normal noise marine guns at 12-inch range, the pledge means that you can flip a blastmaster. He gives them a sustained hits, so you're rolling 6 blastmaster shots. You should average 4, and then you'll flip 1 to a 6. So you should be getting sort of 6 or 7 hits with those sustained hits every time with Blastmasters, which is huge. Never mind if you're rerolling ones. So like, suddenly that noise marine unit actually has pretty damn good damage output. Plus, he does mortal wounds to a unit that was shot by that unit. So I think honestly, he's like, that's the best noise marine unit you can get in this codex. I think is led by him with the in this detachment, because you'll quite often get that reroll ones to hit early, and hopefully that reroll ones to wound as well. So that's a really nice piece to have, and one of the biggest draws to me for this detachment. But yeah, so it's, once again, it's lots of like skirmishing units that can hit reasonably hard. Once you get the buffs, they're hitting much harder than they should. If you're getting up to that 5 and 7, you get like sustained hits and lethal hits, and then you get crits on 5s. It's just like, whoa. Like if you somehow because you're playing against one of these like crazy MSU of characters, like opponents, you get to 7, and suddenly any of your units is just hitting like a train, which is like not what it does normally. So really, really nice. I mean, Lucius, imagine Lucius going in with full rerolls to hit and wound, sustained lethal, crits on 5s. Like, well, he's just killing whatever he wants. So yeah, that's and same with flawless blades. It's fantastic. So this is, I think, one of the army lists you'll see a lot of early on. Very popular at the moment in testing. Maybe tweaks will be made to it. But yeah, I think this one is one I'll certainly be looking at. If I was looking to run Coterie, it's definitely on the list. Right. Then we move on to rapid. So before we go on to the transport detachment, and I think I've cooked at something interesting here. This was just me figuring it out, but I just want to take a moment to remind people, if you're this far into the video, thank you very much for watching. Please give the video a like. Check out Black Crow, the rest of our content. We've got a lot of people working very hard on creating the best content for you guys. Give feedback, comments. Hit subscribe. That would be great if you could. We have some sponsors that help us out. We've got Glasshammer and we've got Terrain Forge. I mean, I bought all of my Emperor's Children stuff from Glasshammer. They've got if you sign up to Elite, you get better discounts. You get better. You can like pre-order early. Lots of cool stuff. So that's how I secured my Emperor's Children boxes. I'm super excited to receive. If you do any purchase on the Glasshammer store, whether it's events, whether it's paints or basing materials or models, 40k or otherwise. If you put Black Crow in the checkout, you get 5% off on top of whatever discounts you have. That includes the elite discount. On top of all of it, you get 5% extra discount. It helps you, helps us. Please check it out. Terrain Forge, great terrain quality, great like different options of different sets. And once again, the code for 5% off is BCG5. And last but not least, if you are looking for any coaching, one of our guys, Toby, has started a coaching group. He's a fantastic player. He has the right mindset for everything. His coaching is Angelus Mortis or something like that. My bad, Toby. I will have that link in the description to check out his stuff. He's posting lots of stuff for free, and also has a Patreon. Go check him out. Like, great content, great player. Smashing it on the UK scene at the moment with Dark Angels, which isn't necessarily the most meta army at the moment. But he's got the right mind. He's got the right strategies, and will help people grow into the best. And if you ever need any questions my way from him, that also works. So I'm happy to help him out. So rapid evisceration. So this is the transport detachment, which seems silly, but I'm excited by it. Like, it's one of those things I'm like, why? But also, of course, like it's I the detachment rule is when you get out of a transport, you get to reroll a hit roll of 1 and a wound roll of 1. So everything we were talking about, like in the previous list with the coterie, the it's like you get the buff that you want from just getting out of transports. Now, these sort of rules are great on that turn you get out, but then you need to be able to get back in. So how much stuff does it how much stuff is there in there to get back in? Is it can I get 2 or 3 units back in a turn, or is it none? Like, so that's the first thing we want to look at when we're thinking about this detachment. So the detachment has a couple of ways to get back in, and they are not ideal. So one is kill a unit near a transport in combat. So if you kill a unit and your unit's wholly within 6 of well, I think everyone has to be within 6. So not necessarily the whole unit has to be wholly within 6. I don't know. Unit is to be wholly within 6. So if you are wholly within 6, you can get back in your transport. So this is the sort of thing where I feel like you're gonna get the Lord's like Lord E's unit out of a Rhino, run them up, advance them, charge them an enemy, park a Rhino like maybe behind some terrain, or charge the Rhino also into them if they're sort of out in the open, and then hop back in. Especially like this shenanigans will work better on objectives and stuff. So where you like kill something on an objective, you pile back towards the objective, which helps you get back towards that Rhino, and then you hop back in the Rhino for 1 CP. Which would be amazing if you can end up like shenanigans that around a wall, but obviously your opponent's going to be aware that you can do this and it's going to try and stop you. But there's a lot of terrain layouts where it's like, oh, if they're hiding on the other side of a wall for the but stood on the terrain, if I park my Rhino on this side of the wall, I should be within 6 because that Rhino is on the objective anyway. So it sort of all works. So it it has some weaknesses of, oh, I rolled my charge too high, which means I've had to base like round, which means I'm no longer going to be able to get back within 6 inches of the Rhino. It's like that then you're just out in the open and you're just gonna get shot and killed. So that one's a bit ouch. And then we've got a couple of enhancements here. So the accomplished is it sublime? That's the right way around. Yeah, it's the accomplished tactician. So if you shoot a unit within 6 or 9 of the accomplished tactician, yeah, within 9 of the accomplished tactician, you can then this once per turn, that unit after it's been shot can get back into a transport if it's close enough. Which is like, okay, so you get to shoot me once, and then I run away back into the transport, which is like could be really good, could be it depends. It stops your opponent going like, oh, I've got this thing that strips cover. Let me shoot that at you first. Or this mortar that increases AP on you. If you shoot that, it's like, oh, I'm back in the transport now. It forces your opponent to play slightly suboptimally, but probably they'll have something that can one-shot a noise marine unit or something like that. This is going to be near. So once again, it's like, oh, this is so exciting as a detachment, and then falls a little bit short. So yeah, I mean, I still like it. There's still that's one of the things where I think it goes from being a top tier to be like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So like, bear with me. I think anyone taking this detachment is a legend, and especially if the list is anything like this one, because I think this is funny. So the other thing, the other enhancement in here is Sublime Presence, and that is if you're on the board, I believe, or I suppose in reserve, but you can't be in a transport. It lets one of your transports come in from reserve as if it was a turn earlier, which means we can have units, transports coming in from strat reserve turn 1. There is also a strat in here to uppy downy 2 dedicated transports, 2 rhinos, or 1 normal transport at the end of the turn, which is also only 1 CP. So you can have a land raider that is. So let's go through the list a bit more. So I've got the 2 of the lords, standard, beat sticks with the infractors. They're going to be running out of rhinos with real ones to hit and wound. And the main issue is going to be trying to get back in the rhinos and keep the rhinos alive. But that's fine. Then we've also got 5 tormentors, just a sticky somewhere. You notice that this list has significantly less chaff than the previous ones, but I am sat there with 6 flawless blades. So 6 flawless blades is to go into a land raider. It's down here, and this has 2 land raiders in the list. So the 2 land raiders, my plan is to have one of them in reserve, one of them not in reserve, and then we've got 3 noise marine units. Those can sort of stick into rhinos and like a rhino and just hop out, shoot, and then stand there and probably not get back in, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, so the two land raiders. Um, One of them's in strat reserve at the start of the game with the flawless blades, probably. And then the other one is on the board with the noise marine. So it's got 2 units, because I believe the Emperor's Children Land Raider can take 14 models, which means you can put two um, uh, Lord Ks and 2 units of Noise Marines in there. So you can then you can drive them up somewhere, drop them out, obliterate stuff with real ones to hit and wound, potentially hop back in the Land Raider. I mean, this is all going to be very terrain dependent on whether you can get a Land Raider out of your deployment zone, because I have been to tournaments and events where you basically can't, or there's like one place, so it's super telegraphed to your opponent. But the idea being that you just yeet a Land Raider forward, drop these Noise Marines out, shoot them into some stuff, do a bunch of damage because you've got sustained hits, real ones to hit, real ones to wound, and then hopefully get shot by a piddling shot and jump back in. I don't know. But you know, tank some the Land Raider can tank some stuff or whatever. And if you're doing this sort of on a flank, maybe the Land Raider can then like uppy downy to the other flank. Or also so the one in reserves with the flawless blades. My stupid idea with this is you rapid ingress it turn one. So turn one, say your opponent goes first, they move out onto the board and they just like wherever they don't have all of their anti-tank aimed, you just rapid ingress the Land Raider into that spot. And then you just yeet it at your opponent. It like goes forward, drops out 6 flawless blades, they charge something, they kill something. The Land Raider charges probably the same thing or something nearby. They hop back into the Land Raider and off, and you're sat there and going, ha ha ha! I've got this ridiculous thing that fits into strat reserve and also can up be downy. So if you like hit a flank, do that, and then the opponent's like, oh, that's really far away now. Like I don't have to deal with that. You then up be down it. So you know it then comes off the board, hops to the other side, goes over there, and Land Raider, with two Land Raiders, you actually have decent like anti-tank threat from las cannons. You've got a decent amount of like killy stuff if on like when you do come out and go. Some of the like honestly the strats are a bit hit or miss in there. Uh, I think you can get out of a transport, which is a bit of an odd one. So like if it could be a good gotcha thing. So not don't gotcha your opponents. But like as in a good like strategic move. Where if your opponent is like wanting to like blow up a rhino or something, you could and then like take a point off you. If you use this strat to sort of get out of the rhino before it blows up, to then go and hide behind a wall with your OC2 models, um, you don't get battle shocked when the vehicle explodes and you're out OCing them on the objective, which suddenly means that they don't get the objective that they thought they were going to get. So there's a nice little strategy there, which forces them to potentially put more models onto the objective, which means that you're then not that bothered about doing it. So then you save CP. It's like one of those things where it's like when you sticky on death, because your opponent knows you can do it, it forces them to play around it, which means then you don't have to do it. And yes, you don't get to get that VP or whatever that you would have gotten with it. But it does let you sort of control your opponent a bit more and force them into suboptimal positions. So yeah, this is my this. I'm gonna play this on TTS at some point just as a laugh, and because I do not own two Land Raiders at the moment, and somehow if this gets like buffed in some way, like Land Raiders come down in points, or they add another way of or a better way of getting into back into vehicles, maybe make that enhancement a bit more expensive, but happens when you get targeted and not by and like maybe I don't know what I would tweak to make this a bit better. I think maybe changing one of the stratagems just to be um, a get back in at the end of the fight phase of your opponent. So you can just always, in the same way that Eldar have, right? So end of the fight phase, no matter what's happened, you can just get back in. It's not even at the end of the opponent's fight phase; it's the end of their fight phase. So it's even better. Like if they had something like that, that would be really, really good. Instead of it being on the condition of you've killed something in combat to then get back in, because that's a lot more fiddly to do, and you're not going to do it with noise marines, which is what you want to be hopping back in and out to protect them and to get that damage output. So that is list number 4. We then move on to the Peerless. Oh yeah, Spawn, by the way. Reactive move, just damn good. Like it, I've not been putting them in my list very much, but that's just because I don't feel like Spawn add huge amounts to the army. They don't really do much damage. They don't. They're not as tanky as other Spawn are because they don't heal and they don't like they have 5 up for no pain, but they're not crazy. The reactive move is the best. Like it's really really good. Don't get me wrong, but like all they are is sort of a action monkey, scoring piece, and a lot of the other lists have quite a few tormentor units so it just feels unnecessary. Tormentors plus rhinos, that's a lot of scoring units, because rhinos are some of the best scoring units you can have. Once you've sent your payload, they are really really good at just driving around and scoring and screening and all kinds of stuff like that. So Peerless, now this is the list that I've been running myself for the first couple of games that I've played, because I wanted to just get a grasp of, like, instead of hopping around between every different detachment, I was like, this is the one that I think is my favorite to begin with. And I think it's got a lot of potential. It also suits my playstyle the most because I am a melee expert with world eaters. This one is the most that leans towards that. The sort of pretty much all the strats are like fight phase based, which is a little bit of I would kind of wish there was a little bit more defensive stuff or shenanigans you could do in the shooting phase, but um, yeah, one of the best parts about this is if you happen to come across a slow army that doesn't want to be in combat with you, you've just got them. Because if they fall back from you and you're still within 6 of them with any unit, that unit can charge for 2 CP. I did it in my last game, even within a Calidus's range of a Vectora. So for 3 CP, I just had Lucius go, oh, you're not going to shoot at me. I'm going to charge that thing that just fell back. And it didn't even fall back from me. So yeah, Lucius is really, really good in this army as well. But yeah, so Peerless, when you charge, which includes that strat that I just mentioned, and heroics and things like that. So when you charge, you get to choose between lethal hits and sustained hits. Now, the Lord Exultants already give lethal hits, so when they're going into combat, they've got lethal and sustained. There is very few rerolls in this army. It is literally just Lucius and the Infractors that have rerolls. But you feel like you miss them, but you're generally doing fine. Like these units hit really hard. You have lots of AP because you have a strat for an extra AP, so you've just got lots of attacks with lethal hits, with sustained hits, with reroll ones to wound, full rerolls to wound, and just hit into them. And all of your like shooty units can just run into combat and still have like AP1 if you want. Especially if they're near the prince, they can go to AP2, which is just like, oh, you've got a bunch of 4-up invuln things. Let me just put mass weight of attacks into you with lethals. I'm suddenly like shredding through custodies because I've just put bodies in. So speaking of bodies, 4 units of tormentors and 3 units of infractors. So it's the same thing. It's like I'm gonna put loads of infiltrate out. I'm gonna sticky objectives. I'm gonna trade with your trading pieces efficiently because I've got like if you've got annoying little characters in units, potentially you've got to keep them hidden to stop me like precision them out with melter guns and plasma guns. I can charge into you and just have a bunch of attacks at AP1 or 2. with my like shooty units. They're really good at actioning just because they're already out on the board in the right places. Um, it's I really really like just the mass of stuff. It just feels like every game I'm like struggling to kill my opponent, but then you sort of just slowly overwhelm them with body. It's like, oh god, I just lost loads of stuff. But I still have loads of stuff because it's like, oh look, I've got 3 units of noise marines, a unit of flawless blades, 7 units of battle line OC2 infantry that are fast. And yeah, noise marines for damage, these lords for damage, demon prince for extra AP over everywhere, Lucius just to run in and be a monster. Speaking of these beat stick lords, blinding speed, once per game, fight first. Okay, suddenly I'm, when we're talking about a melee mirror, you've got a demon prince with fight on death 2+. You've got a fight first lord here, and you've got a fight first Lucius, and you've got potential of causing battle shock as well to try and stop their interrupts. There's a lot of sort of good just hitting here. You've got a way of making -1 to hit in combat. You've got a way of fight on death, full fight on death for 2 CP. Icons. You've got so many icons in here to generate CP. Grenades. You've got like I say, the 2 CP. I just get to beat a charge into you because you fell back somewhere. Is really, really like when your whole army's infantry as well. It's like if I make this charge, you just don't get to shoot this unit, and then because it's your turn, I will fight first. In this fight, not fight first, but I will get to go first. And smack you hard and kill you. Yes, and to be fair, if you do it with a fight first unit, it means they can't even like even if they charge you with one of the units, you're going to get to hit something first. So yeah, it's there's a lot of like shenanigans like fight phase wise. There's also a consolidate 6 inches, which then combos really, really well with this rise to the challenge, which is a once per game fight again at the end of the fight phase if your model, just the model, is an engagement range of 3 or more enemy models. This isn't the easiest thing to set up. It does give your opponent some agency to try and avoid it with the way their models are spread out, but the prime example of where that doesn't work for them is if you have a transport. So if this unit hits a transport, I don't need a second unit to come and help me out to pick up the unit inside, assuming the unit inside is not really good in combat. Because then I'll pile into it because it's almost impossible to stop. You'll be able to position it in a way where it's like, okay, especially with a 6-inch consolidate for 1 CP, you can do some nice shenanigans there. So you get him in, he then and his once per game go turn of extra 3 attacks and AP is for the whole fight phase. So if you fight a second time, it also applies to that one. So he just has a silly amount of attacks, sustained, lethal, rerolls to wound, lance. He just like the distortion one is +1 attack, +1 damage as well. So even his extra attacks are damage too. You just have all 3 of those are incredibly difficult for an opponent to deal with, especially melee armies. Well, melee armies don't have as much problem with rise to the challenge because if you pile into a melee unit, it will hit you before you get your second activation because the second activation happens at the end of the fight phase. So potentially not as good there, but if you can tank the hit, you just then get to rip another squad apart. So yeah, that's the thing. Like I love the Demon Prince with this. Like it just makes everything have more AP. He has lone op, which means that he's reasonably hard for the opponents to deal with. Noise Marines just to sort of soften up enemy units, clear screens, and just generally cause some damage. It's very nice. Rhinos just to get you there. And then trying to think if there's anything else in here that I wanted to mention for this detachment. No, that's it. So if you had a keen eye there, I said 6 lists and I said 6 detachments. I did not say that I was doing 1 list per detachment. Because the last attachment is like chosen of let me find the name of it. Slaanesh is chosen. Now, I cannot wrap my head around how this attachment would be worth using. Every codex has a dud. Like, this is ours. It it just doesn't really make sense. It's like the detachment rule is your like special character unit that is like favored, has like, is it rerolls to wound or something like that? Yeah, I get to reroll the wound roll. Half my character units already do that, if their opponent's on the objective, or reroll ones at least. So okay, that's one thing. Two, the units do like that chosen thing changes every time one of your character units kills an enemy unit. Means it kind of doesn't work. Like, if I'm like, oh cool, my unit killed something, it's now got the champion rule. Now I get reroll wounds, but I've already used it this turn. So what? And it's not like we have units that are good in shooting and in combat like a lot. Like, it's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, I shoot something over there and then I charge you with this other unit, which means then, oh look, I've swapped it again to that unit, which means when it comes around to my next shooting phase, I'm stuck. And it's like, you're getting one unit to have reroll wounds at best, and then sometimes you're not going to get that because you accidentally killed something else somewhere else first before getting to use it. Especially if it was like, oh, it's on my combat unit. It's like, well, does that mean if I shoot you with any character units? So I was like, maybe it works if you just take one character unit and just like that unit is just buffed for the whole game. But the detachments also don't really work with it, and yeah, it's just the stratagems, and like it's just like, oh okay, so it's just, I just can't with that. So I mean, if you really into like this army's got loads of characters, loads of character units, it just doesn't suit that detachment. It feels like, I don't know what happened there, but it's fine. We've got 5 very interestingly different detachments. So I'm happy, right? One dud is fine. So my last list was a little meme list that I wrote, because, and I called it Stupid MSU. And I put it in Peerless, but it would really go in any of them. I think maybe Coterie might be the better one to do, but effectively, it's literally just like, the reason why it's in Peerless is just for that extra damage uh, enhancement, just because I had those points left. So it's like, I'll put it in Peerless. And also it means that just all of these units can get like lethals or sustains, right? So it's the 3 lords again, and then just, oh look, max MSU. So we've got 6 units of tormentors, 6 units of infractors. So we've got 6 metal guns, 6 plasma guns, 6 combat units, 3 of which are lead, and you can fill rhinos with them. So you've got 3 rhinos with like, maybe, to be fair, maybe this list might work better as 10 mans for their lead, but I just love the idea of just being like, I have so many 5-man Space Marine units that actually can, they're not awful. There's also that one CP extra AP that's useful in here, or all of this other stuff where it's all got precision as well. It's like, if you run into an army that has like a bunch of characters, like the Master Executions in World Eaters is the example that comes to mind. He's got 4 wounds, he's toughness 4, 3 up save. He's not got anything special. It's literally just like dead. Like, yeah, I might not be able to kill all the berserkers, but I can definitely kill him. And now you don't have to fight first, so I can charge you. So yeah, there's a lot of weird and wonderful like things of that, but like this is just silly of just like, I wonder how much I can contain someone with just MSU Space Marines, and lots of lethal hits if you have a bunch of vehicles. It can't be good. But I just thought I would leave you on that silliness. So once again, if you're this far through the video, thank you for sticking around. We're at an hour now. Wow. Okay. So it's these are my ideas. I will be updating them as I go, in the sense of like, I'm not expecting this to be any of these to be my final list that I take to a tournament. But I'm sort of bringing you along on this journey of me like figuring out what I think's best. We will have more conversations, more videos to come about it. If you have any suggestions of videos you would like to see, please comment, please hit me up, let me know. And yeah, thank you for watching.